similar to the Suns. You know, the Dallas Mavericks, they made the big splash. They got Kyrie Irving. The Kyrie Irving, Luka Doncic, in my opinion, I think it's right now it's not the best backcourt yet, just because I feel like they haven't felt them. They haven't felt each other out yet. I feel like they're still adapting to each other on the court. That's kind of what happens when you get two ball dominant guys. But I do think within the next couple of weeks we're gonna look at them and be like, all right, this is the best backcourt in the league. Do I think it's gonna eventually, kind of take them, the length of the playoffs? I don't know. I feel like the West might be just a tad bit too competitive. A lot of deep teams in the West. You got Denver, loaded with depth. Memphis is one of the best defensive teams in the league. You have, obviously, you can't count the Warriors. I just want to see how they look like when Steph gets back. They might make a run and still be able to kind of just maintain that spot in the playoffs. I just talked about Phoenix. I put that, Western Conference Finals bar for them. I do expect them to make a deep playoff run. So you got a lot of teams in the West. I just don't know. And like I said about Phoenix, I don't know if Kyrie and Luka are going to have enough time to adapt to each other, feel each other out, these last... I mean, they played 3 games. I think they played like 3 games thus far. No, I'm sorry. They played 2 games. So they're 0-2 with Kyrie and Luka, and they're 2-0 with just Kyrie. Obviously, when Kyrie got traded, Luka was still recovering from his, I think it was a minor hamstring, I believe. And then we saw that game against Minnesota, particularly that last possession, after Kyrie put on a masterclass fourth quarter, one of the best, stretches I've ever seen from him, but that's just something I've become accustomed to at this point, watching him. Put on that masterful fourth quarter, brought the Mavericks back into the game, and then last possession, Kyrie and Luka, they were obviously being too selfless. They were trying to create for each other. Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, shout out to them. They did a beautiful job with the perimeter, not biting on any counters, any special skill moves. That Kyrie and Luka are 2 of the clutchest shot makers in the league. Like I said about KD and Booker, Luka and Kyrie are right there when it comes to just tough shot makers, tough shot takers too. They're definitely gonna hoist it up some way, somehow. And they're gonna, bait you into fouls, bait you into doing things you might not want to do as a defender. So you do have to keep that on the lookout, that those 2 are 2 superstar scorers, that it might be enough to kind of make Dallas competitive. But like I said about Phoenix, I'm even worried about their defense either. I don't know who is going to defend on Dallas. Dorian Finney, just like Mikal Bridges, he's not taken out completely, but he's taking on the responsibility of, the primary scorer on the opposing team. Once you take that out, now you're like, all right, what do we got here? I mean, Dorian Finney was a very, very vital part of, the Mavericks beating the Suns last year. So switch that. Obviously, you get Kyrie Irving, but who's going to step up? I don't know who that guy's going to be. Is it going to be, Tim Hardaway? Is he going to become, this kind of two-way 3-and-D guy? Is it going to be, Christian Wood is a mainly offensive-minded player. He's a very talented offensive player. Are you going to expect him to kind of, grow into this defender? I'm not sure. You got Max Kleber. He's still a little hurt. There's a lot of guys. You got Frank Ntilikina. He's mainly, he's familiar with guards. It's just like, you see, I'm trying to pull names out of thin air, and I don't know if Dallas can. I don't know if they can defend. I don't know if they can defend enough to really make that finals push. And I know people are like, oh, well, Luka brought them last year, to the Western Conference Finals, and they battled the Warriors, but that was a completely different team. Like I said, Dorian Finney was a very, very, very vital part of that, of that team. And yes, the reason why Kyrie is gonna fit beautifully next to Luka is because Luka's a lot like LeBron. He has the ball in his hands a lot, but he absorbs so much attention. He takes away from so many other guys that, like, when you surround him with shooters and a secondary, star shot maker like Kyrie, it just gives Kyrie that green light to kind of come and just, kind of go do his thing. And Kyrie has plenty of history working with a guy that's very ball dominant. He did it with LeBron. He did it with James Harden when James Harden was in Brooklyn. Kevin Durant's not particularly ball dominant, but Kyrie knows how to coexist with a guy that needs to get, 20, 25 shots up. He knows how to kind of float in and out. You know what I mean? He knows when to turn it on. He knows when to kind of turn it off and kind of, let things be and play another role. But that's kind of my main thing with the Kyrie Luka pairing. I mean, on paper, they're a talented team. That team's going to score a lot of points, but the problem is they're going to let up a lot of points. I'm not as worried about Phoenix as I am about Dallas, just because at least Phoenix, they have the personnel. Like, they have the guys. It's just about, are they going to buy in and do it? Dallas, on the other hand, I just don't even know if they even have the personnel to defend. I hope they prove me wrong, because I want to see a very, very competitive West playoffs. And it's going to be competitive anyways, because, Kyrie and Luka, those are two of the most competitive stars that we have to offer. And, they're gonna get guys to play up. They're going to get guys to play up to their competition. So they're definitely not going to go out sorry or anything. But, when it comes to the playoffs, Kyrie and Luka aren't particularly defensive stoppers either. They're going to compete. I think Kyrie's a very underrated defender for a guy his size. Luka, he might not be a defensive stopper, you know what I mean? No one's calling him Gary Payton, but he's still a body, you know what I mean? He's still like 6'7", 2 and some change. You gotta, if he works on defensively, you're gonna have it's not gonna be easy. I know that. Just knowing Luka and his competitive spirit, it's not gonna be easy. So that's really my only worries with the Kyrie Luka pairing. Personally, I think it's on paper, in terms of on offense, it's going to be beautiful. It's going to be beautiful. Christian Wood is going to get a lot of easy looks. Tim Hardaway Jr. is going to get a lot of open threes. And Kyrie and Luka are going to make defenses, they're going to give defenses nightmares. Because you can't... The thing about, superstar scorers, there's superstar scorers like Jason Tatum. You got Donovan Mitchell, Joel Embiid. And I'm not taking anything away from those guys. But guys like, Kyrie Irving, guys like Luka Doncic, those guys you can't game plan for, because they're so skilled out of their minds that they have a counter for a counter and a counter for that counter and then another counter and then another counter. Specifically Kyrie, but you can say Luka too, because Luka is so skilled that it's really it's up to him whether he wants to pick his spot, go and take a shot that he's comfortable with, or if he wants to toy with you and make you think he's going in one direction when he's going the other, or make you think that he's going to take a shot here when he's taking the shot at another angle. That's going to drive defenses crazy. And, defenses are going to have to pick their poison. It's either going to be, you're going to deal with Luka scoring 30 or you're going to deal with Kyrie scoring 30. You're not going to be able to shut down both. I will be very shocked if there was any team in the league that will be able to shut them down offensively, one of the two star scorers. But defensively, that's the only thing I really do worry about. I mean, let's see. Both Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, this goes to, them getting familiar with each other. Both of them do average 5 isolation possessions a game. So each of them, coming up until now, that still stands now. Obviously, both of them were coming from different situations. Luka's had the ball in his hands, a lot more prior to Kyrie. Kyrie had the ball in his hands a lot more, prior to joining Luka. But two of them have been mostly effective in isolation situations. Now, don't get me wrong, isolation basketball, that is a necessity when it comes to, playoff basketball, because the game slows down, refs aren't blowing, they aren't blowing the whistle. And the elite of the elite have to, make the toughest of tough shots, in the most crucial of crucial situations. So with that being said, those guys are going to get theirs. They're going to get their numbers. They're going to get their stats. And they're going to make games very, very competitive. And they're going to win. They're going to win some games. Don't get me wrong. Just solely on their offense. But when we're talking about these acquisitions, we're talking about playoffs, talking about the long term. What do we expect long term from these guys? And I just don't know if that particular style of play is going to be the best for the team. You know what I mean? I mean, don't get me wrong, Kyrie and Luka, they're selfless players too, especially Luka. And Kyrie is a very willing passer. I feel like that's something he doesn't get a lot of credit for. He's a very willing passer, and he doesn't turn the ball over. Those are traits that you'd want from your point guard, even though he's playing the 2. But he's a point guard. That's something that you'd want from a point guard. But besides those two guys, I just don't know. Christian Wood and Tim Hardaway. After that, I feel like it really does begin to get a little thinner. Bertrand's, he's hurt right now. He's gonna come back at some point. That's another shooter. But like I said, I keep mentioning shooters, and at this point, the team doesn't really need shooting. The team needs defenders. So I guess we'll see. It's still too early. At least with Phoenix, I haven't seen anything yet. But I have an idea of what they might look like. Kyrie and Luka, we've seen what they've done thus far. Obviously, they're still getting more comfortable with each other. They played twice before the All-Star break. There's what can I really expect from them besides them getting their numbers? Because they're stars in the league. They're gonna know how to get their numbers. But how are they gonna take their numbers and make sure it's gonna lead to wins? That's the biggest thing with the Kyrie Luka thing. And the Mavs, with this gamble, a lot of people are like, oh, taking on Kyrie, that's a big gamble. It's not that big of a gamble, because when you think about it, Kyrie is not. He's not under contract. He's not. You know, he's seeking a new contract. You know, there's been speculations about him rejoining LeBron in LA. I'm sure that's be a lovely reunion. You know, I'm sure everyone would love that. You know, but at the same time, when you do think about it, if he kills it with the Mavericks, say the Mavericks go to Western Conference Finals, take the Suns 5-6 games, or they take the Warriors 5-6 games, or Denver, or whoever, it's going to be a little optimistic. Kyrie might be like, okay, listen, I'm at this stage in my career where, you know, I'm trying to find a home, and, you know, playing next to Luka Doncic, that might really help that. So I'm not ruling out anything with the Mavericks. I can't really set an expectation for them. I do think they're going to be a very, very tough on the playoffs, but ultimately I don't think they're going to have enough defenders to really hang with the best in the West. I don't believe that, along with the defense, I don't think that Kyrie and Luka are going to have enough time to just kind of be on the court together for them to make a finals push. I feel like you don't just kind of just make that finals push just by plugging in a player. I feel like there has to be, you know, a necessary amount of games played, time together, and that's not just with Kyrie and Luka. That's Kyrie, Luka, and everyone else. That's Kyrie and Jason Kidd. That's, you know, it's Jason Kidd and, you know, the rest of the role players, trying to get them to kind of work around Kyrie and Luka and that whole dynamic. That takes time. Those aren't things that aren't born over. That they aren't. You know, this is not 2K. This is not something that just comes overnight. I'm sure, like, on paper it looks great. On practice everyone's smiling, but it's not something that just happens just like that. So, you know, with that being said, I do expect Dallas to make the playoffs. I do expect Kyrie and Luka to kill it. I expect them to be like a second round team, win a round, and maybe they'll run into like the Clippers or, you know, the Suns or Memphis or Denver. The West is just too stacked. The West is just stacked that I don't even know how many elite teams are particularly in the West, because you have these teams who are elite on paper. Then you have teams like Golden State, teams like Memphis, teams like the Clippers, those teams like Denver, teams that have previously gone multiple rounds forward, you know, with the same core. Now you've got these new teams like Phoenix, new teams like Dallas. They have the experienced players, but those experienced players don't have experience with the current cores right now. And I feel like we do have to kind of take these teams and kind of put them in not their own separate class, but we kind of got to higher the bar, just because they've had the camaraderie together, they've played together, they've won rounds together. These guys, this is more like a fantasy thing. We gotta wait and see. We gotta wait and see how they look like after 2 weeks of play. So yeah, that's what I got for Dallas, really.